Hello and welcome back. Today we have our first regular standard or second delivery overall of Hachei's Warhammer Age of Sigmar Spearhead Partwork magazine. As a standard 4-weekly magazine, we now have our first delivery of 4 issues with issues 3 through 6. If you're new to this and you're not quite sure what the Hachei Spearhead magazine is, I'd suggest go checking out the other videos I've done on this. However, they are essentially a partwork magazine where you receive for $9.99 a month either some figures or some paints, and this slowly builds up to several armies worth of miniatures for the Warhammer Age of Sigmar Spearhead game. So anyway, without any further ado, let's get down to looking at what we got this month. So first off, as I said, it's the second delivery, or the first regular 4-part delivery we can expect. There is no free gift with this delivery. The first delivery gave us our clippers and a file. There's nothing with this delivery. I think maybe the third delivery gives us our first folder or binder for storing these. The first one being one of the free gifts, and then subsequent ones hitting a price point of, I think, $7.99, but I'm not certain on that. So with issue 3, we get our magazine, and we get the sprues to assemble 5 Liberators. The nice price point of $9.99. It's worth noting that so with this being a part work, the figures are primarily taken from the Warhammer Spearhead boxes, which you can buy individually at your Warhammer stores, and they retail for about £100 to £115, and they build up a nice small army overall. Maybe for a future video I'll try and do some cost breakdowns to give a better idea. However, for now, if you wanted just the Liberators, a box of 10 Liberators from Warhammer is priced at £38. So with this, you to buy 2 of them, to hit your 10 Liberators, you'd be looking at about 20 quid. So you are saving about £18 overall on the magazine. But if you wanted those 10 Liberators, obviously you've got to buy 2 magazines. We get, obviously, our front cover, which gives us some nice artwork in the background, and the figures we can expect to build this issue. Opening it up, one problem I do find with these magazines is that when they go through the hole punching process in the factories, they tend to stick together, and I often need to get like a little knife or a flat ruler or something just to sort of slide it gently. You don't want to rip the pages over the hole punch site, just to tear that off, and so it can be opened properly. I'm not going to do that with every page here, but it'll just give you an idea. So this issue gives us, in our reading section, some further information on our Stormcast Eternals, which are part of our Liberators we got this month. As you can see, trying to pull it here, it's ripping it. It also goes on to exploring the Storm's Eye. We get a look at one of the celestial realms of Spearhead, or Sigmar, which is Azaya. We then get our building guide, so we get nice clear instructions for building our liberators. It also includes giving you the options of having slightly amended or different builds if you want. So for example, with this one you can give them an alternate head, or this one here you can give them an alternate weapon or shield, depending on how you want to assemble them yourself. We then get a how to paint tutorial. This is about setting up our painting area to work nicely. Gives a guide on the various brushes we can expect and what they are used for. I'll be discussing the Warhammer brushes in a little bit. We get a play section, which details obviously the rules for playing Spearhead. It comes up with various scenarios and details on their weapons. So there we have our play section, and then the back just gives us some tokens to cut out if we wish. While the back of the magazine looks forward to issue 4, where we can expect a paintbrush and our first 2 paints. So without any further ado, let's move to issue 4. And for issue 4, as you can see, we get a starter brush, which is nice enough. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Citadel's paintbrushes. I don't think they last particularly long, especially for the price point they hit. There are better brushes out there, and I think there's better brushes at a cheaper price point as well. But for a brush in the magazine, it's not bad, and it's a nice starter brush. And the starter brushes work well enough for doing base layers and sort of batch painting, as the finer details that these struggle at. But it's reasonable enough. Paintbrush, I believe, the paintbrushes vary in price because depending on which brush you get, but they usually retail at around the £5 mark. So that's worth noting. We also get a pot of base Abaddon Black and our base coat of Retributor armor. Citadel, or what is now becoming Warhammer paints, offer a various range of paints. So the bases are designed for your base coats. They do layers for adding a layer. They do texture paints, dry brushing paints, contrasts and shades. And they do a whole range of paints to fit all of your individual needs. The Spearhead magazines will only provide the paints that the guides are using. So if you want to venture out and paint your own miniatures in your own colours, you will need to go to Warhammer and buy your own paints. The paints, depending on sizes, range from about £3 upwards. I think a pot like this is probably just under the £3 mark, so that is £6 there. So should we say about £11 in total spending here? So, and £10. So you save a couple of quid on this magazine if you were to go buy these all individually. Obviously, if you're only after the paints, then you probably are better off picking them up directly from your local Warhammer store. One thing I will note before we move on to looking at the magazine is that this delivery, which is the main release, has given me a Citadel colour Abaddon Black and a Citadel colour Retributor armour. Now, if you saw my previous videos, you'll know that I picked up these magazines under the original trial run back in September last year. When I bought issue 4 in September last year, they contained the Warhammer colour Retributor armour and Abaddon Blacks. So the paints are the same. Citadel branded paints are going under a rebrand to become Warhammer, just to make everything easier for marketing standpoint, the paints I believe are still the same. You can see the sizes remain the same, nothing's changed on those front. However, I do find it interesting that the Trial Run magazine came with the Warhammer paints, which was before Warhammer had even announced that they were changing their paints, their paint branding from Citadel to Warhammer. And yet the main release, which is now after the announcement of the change, contain the Citadel paint. So it's been interesting how Warhammer are supplying these to Hatche. And it'd be interesting to see if other paints in this series end up being Citadel or Warhammer. Doesn't make obviously any real difference. It's just worth a consideration. As for issue 4, you can see I've got a slight piece of paper there. That's fine. We get our nicely artwork cover with a Stormcast and the, I forget the rat army name, but the rats attacking there. We get a summary of what came in this magazine, so the 2 paints and the starter brush. First page in this magazine is our collect. So this covers the miniatures we get, and it covers their various stats and details, etc., etc., for being used in games going forward. We also get our Grace Seer from the Skaven, our Warlock Engineer, our Rat Ogres. Then we move on to our painting, and for the very first one, looks at undercoating, base coating, or our figures. So it gives tutorials on how to use the paints and what to expect. Goes through undercoating your first miniatures. So it wants you to use the Abaddon Black as a base coat. Personally, what I tend to do for undercoating my figures is I spray paint them. You can go out and you can buy primers which act for miniatures solely on the base of priming and giving an undercoat to your figure. Play looks more at the basics of playing, so the turn-based nature of the game. Looks like it gives us another scenario to play through, but there we have issue 4. Issue 5 gives us a brand new and exclusive figure in the form of Karnus the Seeker, and it's also coming with another brush. So let's move on to issue 5. As we saw, issue 5 gives us the sprue for our new exclusive figure, which is Karnus, and it also gives us a large base paintbrush, which is obviously used for painting large areas and giving undercoats and base layers, etc. etc. I can't get this back on now. That one is too small for it, but oh well, that can go to one side. So we have our brush, which probably would retail for about £5 on its own, give or take. Again, you can obviously get other paintbrushes from other places for less or more, depending on whatever. Karnus is hard to price because, one, it's an exclusive figure, meaning that there is nothing else out there that I can use as a comparison point. However, typically these character figures from Warhammer, especially ones which just come on these sprues like this, tend to retail in the £20 to £25 price points. So they tend to be a little pricier than a box of set miniatures like the Liberators from issue 3. if we were to use that as an assumption for this figure, that would mean that we're probably saving somewhere in the region of about 15 to 20 pounds. But again, I will stress this figure is obviously exclusive to this magazine, at least for now. Whether that comes out in a future set later from Warhammer, I can't possibly say. But nonetheless, we get our magazine. We get some more reading material on the storm hosts and the Stormcast army as a whole. So coming back to the paints, there are obviously different factions within the storm hosts, and you can see that each of them have their own paint schemes. Now, the painting guides for the storm hosts look like they will likely follow the Sigmar army here in their golds and blues. But if you have the paints and you want to venture out, you can obviously paint them in different colours. It's your figures, your miniatures. Do with them as you see fit. So if you want to make them look like Barney the dinosaur, go for it. We get some more on the character types and figures within the Stormhost armies. We get a look at the Tempest Straits, which is part of one of the Sigmar realms. We get a narrative story in our fiction segment of reading. We get a how to build of Carnus. We get a how to paint collection. So interesting enough, it gives us a breakdown of the paints we can expect to be released in coming issues. So issue 4 is giving us the Abaddon and the Retributor, which we've seen. Issue 6 will look like it's going to give us a Cantor blue and a Rhinoxide. We can also expect things like Leadboucher, Mephiston red, Corax white, Ketchikan flesh, etc., etc. With paint following all the way through to what looks like at least issue 67. It wouldn't surprise me if if there are issues post that which also have paints, but I guess we will see in time. We get a guide on painting techniques for painting our miniatures. So it talks about how to thin your paints, which is essential for making sure the paints flow nice and evenly over your miniatures. Talks about how to brace your figures. Brace yourself so that you can paint with a nice steady hand. Nice steady hand. It's something I don't have. Then it gives us a further guide on painting our Stormcast Eternals. So it talks about having already based our undercoated in the Abaddon Black, now giving them a coat of the Retributor armor, so you can see how they begin to start looking. And issue 6, as we've already seen, is giving us 2 new paints to help bolster out our armies, or the colour schemes of our armies. And here we have a Citadel base Cantor blue and a Citadel base Rhinox hide. So we've got 2 nice new colours to add to our collection. No brushes or anything else, on the assumption that these are retailing at about £3 a pot. You do actually lose out on about £4 here, give or take. However, you are more than making up for that loss in your figure issues, so it does balance out. It does work out in a difference over the course of the series. But if you're only picking up the odd issues here and there, then you may find that this issue you can actually just get the paint cheaper somewhere else. We get a reading section looking at the realm of fire in Sigmar, which is Akushai. We get a map of the area. We get a breakdown or some further background information on our Stormcast Eternals. We get a collect section with the details and stats of Arcanus the Seeker. And we get a how to paint section, which now teaches us where to and how to use the Cantor Blue on our figures, along with what needs the Rhinox hide for the miniatures as well. And there we have our first, or the issues 4 to 6 of our Spearhead magazine. Looking forward, issue 7 is going to give us Clan Rats part 1 of 2. So you can see here that there is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So we can expect to build 20 Clan Rats in total. Because it's such a large collection of miniatures, it will be spread across 2 magazines. I can't speak for certain, however, if it's anything like the Combat Patrol 40k version of this magazine, it's likely issue 7s and 8 will have the miniature pieces. So within 2 issues, you will have those 20 miniatures to paint, but that is for next time. There we have it. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, freedom is a right, not a privilege.